Okay, today I'm going to have some fun with a pour. So I have liquid watercolour here. I've got, I'll say the colours as I pick them up, otherwise it's tedious. You get all colours and no action. So I'm going to wet the paper to start with, and just with a heat brush, just wet the paper across and just keep that paper wet. So I'm using pipettes for the watercolour, and so I've got a different pipette for different colours, so I'll keep those here and start to just put paint on. So to start with, I'm going to pick up cobalt blue and tilt it so it'll run down off the page. Make a bit of a mess, but that's all right. So I've just put cobalt blue on. Now I'm going to move that round, and I can do that with a spray bottle. I want to keep it up that end of the page, so I'll just let that loose and make that come down. Excess needs to come off at the time, so I'll just take that off. That's excess because it's going off the page, and I want the rest of it to be able to go across and do something on the sky. So it's a pour, but it's also basically controlled at the same time, because basically when you actually do a pour or you do an artwork like this, you need to actually finish up with an artwork. It's no use doing a pour and ending up with something that's not actually classed as a proper artwork. It needs to have certain elements. So it needs to have a design, it needs to have light, dark, something of interest to keep the person interested in your work. Okay, so I've just put some blue on. Okay, I've got a little bit, that's my blue pipette. They're just the plastic pipettes. You can pick those up at the chemists, I think have those. And I'm just going to put a little bit for fun, a little bit of phthalo in it. And just a little bit, even though it's a nice sky. I hope I don't wreck it. Okay, just in here, a bit of phthalo, a bit of something to give it some hurry up. Put that back in the container because it hasn't been contaminated. Now it's got some action. Okay, so if you actually spray it too much, you end up taking the colour out as well. This spray bottle is one of the, orange citrus cleaner that you can get in supermarkets now, and it's a great little spray bottle. Okay, take care of the edges so I don't get any surprises. And now I've got a burst of blue in the sky. Clean up these edges, they're the problem that'll come back later. Okay, so it's continuing across the page. I could hurry that up a little bit. Get that to just soften a little bit, backwards and forwards. Let it come down a bit. Okay, so again, clean up edges. Put that back into the artwork because I can use it and let it run down. So now I've got a sky, an area that will become a sky. Next I've got Windsor Violet, and I'll use the blue pipette because that doesn't matter. Windsor Violet, and I'll just let that go across the page now and see what happens. Don't get too much on there. Bit of colour. Take care of these edges that I've got loose. Just let that move around the page. Could possibly let it go a little bit lighter there, or bring it back. Don't take everything off your page or you'll actually lose the colour. And so too much water, too much spraying will lose a lot of your pigment. Just let it do its own thing. And let it go back up into the sky, although I did like the blush of the turquoise up there. I'll send it up here, up to that light patch. So it moves at its own pace. Oh, the blue's going mad again, so I'll take that off. Take that little bit there. Okay, so now I'll start to get back into some blues. I think I've still got the purple on there, it doesn't matter. Pick up the cobalt. Don't know whether I picked any up. No, yes I did. Back to some blue. Let it go across the page, down the page. Now let it go across the page more, because if it comes down, it's going to come down over everything. Which I don't mind it coming down a certain distance, but I don't want the blue everywhere. That can run. And so you notice that I keep turning it at different angles to get it to do different things. And I don't know what it's going to turn out like, but just keep working. Oops, knocked something off the desk. Now I'll start working into other colours. If I put yellow in, that's my blue one, so I don't want that back in here. Yellow. Just drop some yellow in places and see what happens. Of course, that'll change to green in places. Let it run up into the blue. Be patient as well, because it takes a fair while and it can run for quite some time. So I'm getting layers. Tip it back. Okay, so as I come forward, I'll become greener, a little bit more of a warmer colour, like the burnt sienna. Just push that brush back off the desk, that's annoying me. Okay, so coming back in, I've got Australian Red Gold. That's the blue pipette. You can wash your pipettes out if you want to, and that'll mix your colour a little bit as well, which won't hurt, unless I put that in the yellow one and ruin the yellow. I'm going to go a little bit more yellow, and I'm also going to put a little bit of Australian Red Gold in with the yellow and see what I get. A little bit of Australian Red Gold in that. Bring that down. Clean up the edges. That'll come out of the middle and go over to the edge. Now it can come down. Still the blue still moving around up here. I'll leave that. That could be something interesting later, so I'll leave it. Now I'll start to get some browns. So I've got the same pipette. I've got burnt sienna now. Bring that in. I'll send it up there on the sideways part of it so that it can go down. Now that went over the yellow, but if I tip it back, the yellow reappears. Plus I can put more in there if I want more. So if you've got wet places on or dry places on your paper, that adds interest to it as well. Bring that across the bottom. Doesn't matter if that comes off. So your artwork will depend on the cockles on your paper as well. That's left something a little bit interesting. Now I'll lay it flat and that'll stop it running everywhere. And soon it'll start to get a little bit drier. It's a wet day today, so that's not an excellent day for this stuff. It'd be really great in summer when it's really hot. It's not very warm today. Okay, so what have I achieved? I've got layers of colour, clear layers of colour, and that's what you'll get in a pour like that. That it'll do its own thing to a certain extent because you're not controlling it, which I like. So that'll continue to just sit there for a few ticks and then I'll start again. I'm not going to dry it completely because I need it damp. So actually I can go up the top here and see what happens. And so I'll pick up some yellow. I should leave these where the colours are actually, otherwise I'm going to get mixed. That's a blue one as well as that one. Let's try some yellow up here. And I'll put it up about here. Oh, no, I won't. It's not got anything in the pipette, unless the pipette's got a hole in it, which it must have. It's not going to pick anything up. That's better. So I've got yellow now, and I'll see what happens when I come up into here. Just yellow in through there, and it should start to cause some cauliflowers. I'm not going to run it too far. Just let it do that so it stays there, and I'm going to pick up some blue and put in it. Maybe, probably cobalt. A little bit of cobalt. Bubbles. Halo, why not? Just don't get too much on. If you get too much paint on, then you can basically just put some more yellow on it or something like that. So that'll come down the edge. So I'm working to the sides now. I don't want this to go over the whole artwork. Let the bubbles go because they've got colour in them. When I get enough off the side, then I can bring it down the paper. That'll do. So now it can come down the paper. Pipette's flying. Keep it over that side. Wish the bubble would get off. Get off, bubble. Take that off the edges. Now I'll work over the other side and get something to happen over here. We'll have a light coming through the middle, and so this will start to close it up. I've got one's yellow to start with. Now it's going to try and come across if I do two sides at once, or if I work my way around, that could be more interesting. So I'll do that. I'll work my way around and drop some more yellow in here. Let it stay there, let it get onto the paper. Now in that I'm going to put some of the red. I've got a red here. Whoops, what are you doing? Keep watching because I just took my eye off it then to get some colours, and then it was going to go and do something horrible. Let that run to a certain degree and then back again. It's coming down. So now I'm starting to build up colours over colours over colours. My colours too have different strengths in them, so that makes it interesting. I'm just going to put some red in here and see what that does. Those colours make grey. because they're all the colours together. That's alizarin crimson. Let it run, taking it off. Don't come in too close to the edge, so I'll take it back out to the outside edge. Now, it can go wherever it likes now. It can just muck around there, go to different places. I'll get the brown, some more burnt sienna down the bottom. It's got a bit of blue in it in the pipette as well, so heavens knows what we'll get. I can see this is not mixed properly. That's the lid for that. There's a chunk of it in the lid. So I keep these liquid the whole time, but sometimes, of course, they dry, and I've had them upside down, so that had a lump of brown in the top of the... Still got it there, but okay, I'll see what I've got. But I'll lose colour if it's just sitting there and not mixed. See what I get. This is probably quite light. Yeah, it doesn't have much pigment at all. But in that, down the bottom, I'm going to put some Payne's Grey in that. Now be careful of Payne's Grey, it's a real bully and it could do some real damage. See what I mean? Starbursts. Bring the brown in to the centre, don't lose all the pigment. Move it round. Okay, so my intention is to get this to be darker at the bottom, to have bits and pieces of trees and stuff in there, so I need to get over this other side soon. I'll keep this side light, this will be my darker side. And so as I keep working, I love the green and pink there together as well, so I'll get more of that in. So, but I've still got to wait, and it's a waiting game. This doesn't happen fast, because the more complex your colours become, the more vibrant and that your colours are, the nicer the artwork will be in the end. Okay, I'll let that sit in that. Don't mind that, but I'll work up here if I can. And so to work up there, I won't put a lot of colour on really quickly, meaning that I'll see what that'll do first. And that's eventually what I want to happen later, is cauliflowers. And that's because this area here is drier than everything else. That'll push up into that turquoise. Some blue. It's my blue. And I've got the cobalt this time instead of the phthalo. Interesting. That's all I can say. It's interesting. Don't take all that lovely yellow out there, so I'll bring it to the edge before I bring it down. Try. Get that runny bit to get back on there. That'll make it faster. This one's fairly stable, so now I can play in this. Got a couple of streaks coming down the page which is forming, but that's all right. If I don't want that, then I can get rid of it by pushing it out of the way. I think that's the black. I'll leave it in there. If you had 150 pipettes, you'd be better off. You'd have one for each colour. That would be safer, because then you wouldn't get mixed up in there and get a pipette that's dirty. I don't think I've got any extra there. So I'll pick the yellow one. That's the lightest one. Pick that. That won't hurt anything. Wash it out and use that. So I can get some more of the Australian red gold in here and push that out of the way. Push that up. Let it go into those colours. It's all about pushing colours around and getting colours to do things. Now I got rid of that line that was coming down. I've got one over here. I'm not that interested in this one, but it's nearly dripped on it. It's quite wet, so I'll leave that for a little while. I could put some of the Australian red gold up there in that and get it to change as well. I'll wash that before I put it back in the yellow. Okay, what did that do? Not much. Move it around. Don't lose the beautiful colours. Keep cleaning. Okay. So I've got a dip here. So your dips, as I said, your dips are going to actually change your artwork. They're going to actually make it do things because of the amount of water in them. That can go out to the side. The purple's moving over, which is nice. Okay, stop there. The reason I stopped was that if it'll go right across that, it'll take some of that out. We've got some cauliflowers happening up here, which is going to be good. Okay, I'm looking at it to see what I think I can see in there because it's not finished as is. It'll actually have to be painted up later to have something of interest in it, something that makes it an artwork. I mean, a lot of people like this sort of thing these days where there's nothing really in it. So you've got to make it up yourself. Coming back for some more of the darks. I've got the Payne's Grey again, and it won't be running that fast, but I'll just let it loose here. Can actually give it some interest. Well, that bit in the corner, that disappeared some time ago, obviously. With the pipette, you can head it in a direction as well. Now, if that was almost dry, that would stay like that. But it doesn't dry exactly as you've done it. It actually will change. I'm going to introduce that into another place. Yep, didn't mean to press that much. But I'll come up higher then. I generally go out of the page higher than dropping down. Bubbles for nothing. Not sure about the blue patch right in the middle, but anyway, could be a lake, could be something in there. It almost looks like there's a landform across here. I shouldn't point with the black pipette or I might get black. I can see what's coming now. I can see a landscape coming. It would have small trees up the back here. It would have tall trees up this side and maybe smaller trees up here, and that would leave you looking through at some blue water, which makes you almost think it's the ocean. because it's too blue for anything else. The sky's pretty. Look at the colours in the sky. Okay, I'm going to put that pipette back instead of standing there holding that. Now I wanted that to go one stage further before I stop. So I'm just going to make sure that you can't hear it, and I'll dry it for just a small amount of time. Now I've dried it slightly, but haven't dried it very much here, and so I want to see what will happen there if I just go back now, because this will be hopefully a bit wetter than what that is, and it should cause more cauliflowers. That'll just break that area up, run it round, and it's got to go into a drier area, which is up here. That's a bit drier up there. Just see what it's going to do when it goes up. And I am trying to make it in a sort of a foliage type shape. That can go off. Okay, so that's given me a level, so you can play with this and get different levels with things. It's light green. Could get some darker colour in it. I'll let it drop down a bit. Don't want it to come in too far. Hasn't done a great deal, but still soft colours. We're still working in soft colours. Looks like a green cloud. Okay, these are a little bit hard to sort of imagine what they're going to be. They look like freak out trees. Just put some yellow in those and see what happens. That's what I want. That's beautiful. It's exactly what I want. The actual cauliflowers. So that's probably too wet. This one hopefully will stay with the cauliflowers. I'll just get that colour off there. Now you could actually get in there with a tissue and do things with it as well. Is it worth it? I'll just put some phthalo in the opposite side and see what happens. That could change things as well. If I put phthalo, a little bit of phthalo in here, because I'm pushing colours around. Let it do its own thing. Now it's too blue, of course, you can see that. I'll get rid of some of the pigment by letting it come down. Push it back up, send it out sideways. Now this has disappeared because it's decided to move. That's what I'm saying, when you get some good things, they will slightly disappear on you. More yellow, make it into more green. Gone a long way. Okay, now if I just let that loose over the back here, it might do something nice up there. A little bit of a spray and see what happens if it decides to go out there. Push it, shake it. No, it's not doing anything, but I like what it's formed here with the dark green. Now, if I want to keep that, I have to just keep it at that angle until it dries slightly, and I can still keep working because I've pushed that dark green up there. I think I've probably pushed enough of it. Now I'll get some of it to come down. And then I'll let it go back up because there's just too much of it. It's a different green, all right. Oh, don't go over the water. We'll keep that. All right, so now I'll push it back up and keep it back dark up in that top edge, and it's got to go over that lump in the paper. There's a lump there, the cockle in the paper. So I'll get it to go up there. Okay, then I'll keep it up there by leaving it at that angle. So now that'll go up there and stay. That's making this even more prominent. Okay. Back down the bottom, I'll get back into some Australian red gold. Use the yellow pipette, it's the same value. Actually, it'll be settling in these bottles as well, so I just sort of squeeze that backwards and forwards to get that to allow it to move around in the bottle, otherwise it would have settled. That's the Australian red gold. And of course this is going to get warmer as it comes towards us. I'll let that go up and hit the green. Let some come off. Keep moving. Put some black in that as well, and now that'll go faster. If I put it at the bottom here, Payne's grey it is, sorry. Now I'm starting to get some depth into that. I'll leave that, let it stay there. It's too hard to try and move it round. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So I'll let it stay there, just add more in the corner, because I will darken it out in the corners later. I like the lightness behind that. All right, I think I'm going to stop there for the reason that if I get too much colour on it, then it's very difficult to get over it later. So I'm going to put some red in this, just for some different colour. Put some of the alizarin crimson in it. Because all those colours mix together, it'll make it more interesting. Okay, so I've tipped it right up. Now I've got a light side and a darker side. Got some different colours, some shapes. Maybe let this loose again. I don't want to lose the goldy colour, but I do want that to have more black in it. And I don't know whether it'll run, but I'll see. I'll see what happens just when I get this back in. Watch it. Okay, so it doesn't have the ability to run because it doesn't have the wetness in front of it. So water follows water. Don't like 3 little blobs there. So that'll just add the dark and the light to that. All right, I'm going to let that dry and watch this space. We'll come back and see what I can actually do with it later. Now my artwork's dry, it's time to consider what can happen to make this into an artwork. So it's one of those things that you don't want to be drawing a lot on this. You can draw on it, but then if you want to rub out, then it's a bit of a problem. So I generally get a sheet of tracing paper and put over it and see what I can actually find in the artwork. There's some small areas down here that look like trees, so I'll take those out. And so there's larger trees up here and a large tree there. So if I actually come down to where the water is, down through here and just in through here, just get an idea of where that tree can go and bring it up. That was a little bit too severe. Bring it up through here, bring it up, let it arch out into the tree here and get an idea of how I want it to look when it's on the paper. There's a line through the page here that you can see. There's a dark line where the paint's just sat in through there. That's something I could use. I don't want to come around here because that'll just make it harder. If you can imagine what's there, it's better than actually pointing out what's there. So there's those couple of bushes here. There's even that bush there. I think there's a smaller one there. Yeah, there's a smaller one there, but I don't want to do those bushes either. So what I'll do is just put some trunks on them, just some bits and pieces on there so that you can see that they're there. So that's made them into the bushes and the colour will do the rest of the work for me. I want to lead through the artwork as well. So if I come out from the trees here and out through here, to get something to happen, I'll come from that point, bring it round and come back out. I'll bring it round, come out and then back down so that you'll see this part of the road but not the rest, and that'll go. There'll be nothing out there. So now I've got a bit of a road happening, and then in through here I'll bring the rest of the trees. Now this one can either go over to that or sit there, and then this one will sit in. You'll see just a little bit of the branches there behind this other tree. So I'm using the paint that's there to find something to make this into an artwork. Now, if I actually do it as that, that means then that you have to go in to focus on part of the artwork. And that's important too, because some of your artworks you may want to focus in the foreground, not so much the middle ground, but the upper ground. So it depends where you want people to focus on your work. Now I've just got a little bit of the poured paint in a cup, and I'm going to use liners, scrollers, liners, to actually do the trees and do bits and pieces on there. So I don't want the road to be too dark. So what I'm going to do is pick up water on that and a little bit of this because it's very liquid. And so therefore when it comes through here, it's coming back down through the road sort of area through there. So I'll just put a line there and just some water, just so I know where that is. That's just part of that coming out. Now I can add a little bit of colour and see what colour it is. I don't want this to be too dark. I don't want it to take over the whole artwork. And remember I had the other one coming down round here and back round to those trees, or up behind the trees, even here will do, so that that'll go round through there. So again, I'll pick up mainly water on the brush with a little bit of colour, oops, not a spot of colour, and start to work my way round from here. That road come round, back round, and then disappeared. So that disappears. So now I'll go with water. That's as wide as that road is. Then comes around, has the middle section there that you can see most of the road, and then comes out. I've got a bit more colour now. Comes out around here and back round. So that's just that paint where the corner's wider. This corner's wider. Just playing in water at the moment, just getting that to organise the colour. That's quite a bend. I have to be a racetrack, I think. Back round here and finish off. Just keep pushing that paint. Take a bit of that bend out. Okay, so now it's got a part of a road in through there. Now I need the trees. So in that colour now, I don't like that colour there actually, so I need more water on it. I need more water just to push it round. Okay, that'll do. It's got a little bit of a dark edge to it, but that's okay. All right, now I'm going to put a little bit of Payne's grey in that. I'm going to make it darker, but I'll have to be careful I don't make it too dark. So I'm just going to use the pipette, the liner brush to do it. So that's just got one drop in it. I'll see what colour that makes. And so test your colours on a sheet of paper. Don't just start on the artwork and then go, whoops, that's way too dark. Oh, crap. Okay. Just spilt the black ink, the black paint. Okay. So that makes a colour that's pretty dark, but not as dark as I want it. I don't want it to be jet black, so I'll make it a little bit darker. Still want it darker again. Okay, I'll have a look at that. It's not dark enough, so I'll pick it up with the pipette. Put one drop in it now. No, 2, 3, 4. Put some black in it. And I'll see what I've got now. That's better. And I can make that a lot darker by adding more paint. Okay, so I've got one tree about here. It's going to dob. So about there. I've got one tree coming up. So I'll just let the brush go sideways to start with. Add more to it where that arched out by itself. I'll let it go. And start to bring branches up. Didn't like what it did there, so I'll bring another branch out lower than it. Make that darker. Bring the branches up. I usually work upside down for this, which is easier for me, not easy for a lot of other people. Because that went thick there, I'll bring a part of a branch up off there as well. Make sure it crosses over. You don't want the tree just to be one-dimensional. Now it's two-dimensional. Still got the light through it, so what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of the Payne's grey on the brush and basically use that. I think I've got some Payne's grey on the side of it and put it on the dark side of the tree. That then just gives it the strength I need down the bottom, and then not much at the top. I'll just wash my brush in the paint and add it onto that so it changes from there. That then has more to that tree, so now you can see that there's plenty on that tree. Okay, so moving over to the other side, I had a couple of small bushes here, And so I'll just put just rough branches on those. Just anchor it to the ground as well. There was another one here, you can hardly see that. Smaller one there. And then a larger one up behind here. I'm just letting the brush dance around on the page. And then the larger one beside the road over here, that one here come up through here on the side of the road there. And that's a larger tree. Make it go out sideways so it does something different. I won't add the darks to it. I'll bring you back here by sight that you'll have to come back here to view it. Anchor that down. There's the larger tree here as well, so you can't see this tree anymore. So I'm just going to leave that. Maybe I'll make this into one tree. Maybe that would be a better idea. So what I'm doing is working with what I can see at the time, not just what I want to make it into. That can be taller up through here. Okay, I will put a small amount of dark on that, even though the brush just fell into it. It's got a branch that disappears up behind there. Now, the road has actually run out just on the edges. So what I'll do is just pick up part of that edge with the dark. Part of that edge, and then let it go so now you can see it a bit clearer. I'm not going to go around the bushes because as soon as you do that, you change the artwork. Right, now I'll leave this for a little while and have a look at it again and see if I want to do anything else from there. I would never ever allow students to have two trees side by side on an artwork. That just gives you that ill balance. So I definitely need to add a tree to make it more of a focus over here. At a distance you can't see that a great deal. All you see is two trees. And so I'm going to actually add another tree. And so I'll draw the tree up with pencil so I get an idea of where it's going to go, and so I'll make it smaller than this one so it's not taking up its space. Would have to be, you wouldn't add a third tree. I'm always looking at students' work to see the distance between trees, whether they look identical. These two have got a split in a trunk pretty much almost in the same position. So this one I'm going to see if I can make a little bit different. I'll go up that way first, which is the opposite, and I'll let it go over and touch that other tree so that it makes it more interesting. And so now I've got a third tree coming into the picture for balance. That's all that is just straight balance. So I've got the colour again that I had. This tree might be a little bit darker because I've actually put some more Payne's grey in this one. But I'll try and pick up a little bit more water, and so that will make it just a little bit lighter. Oh, didn't mean to do that. That just did that all by itself. Trees do all sorts of different branches on them when you travel around. I never say never when people go, oh, but a tree doesn't do that. Well, somebody will find you a tree that does do that. It's going to be leaning out that way a little bit more. Can be a little bit wider than the other trees. Anchor it down. To anchor something to the page, it's a good idea just to wet below it. Just wet down here and let it do its own thing. It'll sort of sit onto the ground that way with just the water. Same with this one. This one's a bit ordinary as well. So if I wet the page and then just put some colour down there, I'll let it choose where it wants to go itself just by coming to the ground and then just getting it in there. That'll make it more interesting as well, even if that went behind. and started to do something for the scene. Still not excited about the road. So I might just get the rigger and wet it again, and I'll wet it over the edges. Now in doing that, that'll make it softer. It won't change the road a great deal, but it'll take this hard line out. The same on the other side. If I actually come onto the other colour and then come into it and went over that, that'll soften that as well, so that the whole area, that'll come out to there. That won't change the actual colour behind it so much. It'll just sort of soften the road off. That'll dry and you won't see that as much. That looks a little bit softer. The other thing I could do is wipe the road out. I'll just see with a bigger brush if I can wipe some of that road out. That could make it more interesting as well. I just don't want to highlight it too much. So I've just got a tissue. Come around now and just wipe some out of the road. So that will just make it softer and disappears. That puts a lot more distance into that artwork as well, so you've got to look into it. What happens if I hate the road? Let's see what I can do to take that out, because I really don't like it. So I've got a softer brush. Okay, I'm going to work on it. I don't accept stuff that I really don't like. It'll change slightly through here, but I'd rather that than have something that I don't like. I don't like the shape of it, and I don't like it at all. So if I just keep working through here, just wet above there and just use the tissue to lighten that off. I could even run more paint through there rather than put up with that road that I hate. Just take that out of it. It's even looking better now with half the road in there. Get along those edges. That's going to wipe out in front of the road now. I mean, I'm even happier with that, where it's just a slight image, not a great deal. If I play any longer, then I'll really dislike it. My tree here in this area now is a little bit too see-through, so I'm just going to add more colour to him while he's wet. Okay, all right, I'll put it aside now and look at it for some time and see if I'm going to do anything else with that. I could actually start to paint a little bit in there, but I'll see. Plan B. I'm going to spray the paper and drop in some Winsor yellow. Now the paper's buckled at this stage because it's been wet for a little while. It'll just do its own thing here, I hope. Then I'll change over to, I'll put cobalt blue in it. See what that will do. I'll leave that at that stage to see what that's going to get up to. Now I'll manipulate that round. It'll change to a green, hopefully. Not yet. Don't like the top edge of that, but anyway. What about the bottom edge? Bring it down and see where it's going to go. Okay, the top edge is dry, so I'll just spray the top edge. Now I'll continue to add pigment to that area until that disappears. You can come out to the tree, don't care where it goes, as long as it covers that road that I mucked up. If it stayed there, I could really get a chance to do something else with the road there. It'll dry lighter than it is because it's so wet. But I need it to focus over. That's better. Now it doesn't have enough pigment in it to change the road. So it's going to stay there. It's going to settle wherever it likes to, so I'm just going to pick up the yellow again and drop more pigment in. Just keep dropping that in. I'll stir the yellow actually because it's been sitting for quite some time. And so the other thing I can do is get that yellow in and then pick up some of the water out of it. So now I can take pigment out of it and water, and that'll give me a chance to get more pigment in there. Okay, just having a look at the colour. Still not enough colour. Alright, what I'm going to do is let that dry, and then I'm going to come back to it and have another shot at it. And basically by then the paper will have actually gone down because it's fighting against itself at the moment. It's actually trying to rise and come away from where I want the depth to be. The other thing, I could put some other colours in it. I could put a little bit of Payne's Grey. That could be interesting, just for the heck of it, because I'd never ever give up. Payne's Grey. Now this is going to take off, but as I said, there's so much water there that it's going to not take much notice of it. Maybe one drop about there. Now we've got a spinifex bush. It won't stay like that. I'll bring the water, I don't want to bring the water back too much. Maybe I'll let that dry, because you never know what you're going to get. And so it's a percentage artwork. There's some good ones and there's some bad ones. You don't see too many of the bad ones. It's done something interesting, that's the main thing. And it'll be soft because you remember how dark this was and now it's light. Looks like somebody set the place on fire actually. But anyway, I might bring it back now. It'll just give me some depth in there and take away just that look of the road going through it. Okay, I'll be back later. I've actually put this artwork up for some time and checked out what I think can happen with it. And remember, I was removing the road that's on there, so I'm going to paint a little bit differently now. I'm going to pick up Winsey Yellow and just put that on the paper here and then spray it and see if I can send it that direction. And so it'll come back towards me. I don't want that to happen a great deal, so I'll raise the paper just a little bit and just touch it and see what happens. And so sometimes it takes a little while for it to move as well. So I'll just move it around slowly. Let's see what it does. And then I'll add blue behind it, cobalt blue. Just going to add that behind and let that run up. That'll actually go into that and turn it into a green, and it's still moving now because the paper's wet up there. And it's actually starting to do something interesting where the blue is actually working its way around. I need it to come back a little bit. Move it back up. I've got one shape there, but I want this to make another shape. I'll change sprayers. I've got several sprayers. And just spray this so it doesn't go up too high. Oh, that was a daub. It didn't spray very well, but that's all right. Come back to the yellow and drop that in behind again and just keep adding that in. So then I'm going back to the blue, drop that in, and I'll let that come down here into that area there that was already there. Drop some more in and just see what it does. Now, earlier I was saying if you get a build-up of colour, you can always take some back off, and I think now's a good time to do that. Take some water off, and that'll actually allow it to change and run differently now. It's not going to go out much further than that did. I'll give it another spray. I don't want it to go right up to the top. I'll go further up now, but I can always bring it back. So when I've had enough of what it's doing, I'll bring it back. But what I'm looking for is more of an interesting shape at the top. It's moving up. It'll only move where it wants to, where the paper's sort of wet. That's not a bad shape. So I'll bring that back down into where the actual bottom section is. And of course that's very wet as well, so that's going to give me a different finish to it. Now I'm moving over to Payne's Grey, fabulous Payne's Grey, and that will just go down the end here and go up and move into that. Now I have a point to view the artwork. Don't let it go too far, it's too wet over here. Pick up some water. Pick some of that up and stop it from running around. It's run out there nicely as well. Alright, now that, by the look of it, needs to just tilt a little bit, not much. So I'll look for something on the desk that I can put under it. Would that be too much to tilt it? Probably not, so I'll just get a container off the desk and put that under the top edge of that corner. So now that makes it come back down here. Now it's coming back down too fast, so that's going to be a disaster as well. So I need to take some out of it, otherwise it's going to run. Don't you go too far. So I'm stopping it by sucking up the excess water. So maybe that's just a little bit too far. done some nice things out there. Generally spraying will do that, will give you light edges. I'll take it back out then. Let some of the dark go out to the top. And then bring it back again. So I've got it sideways now. Trying to get it on an angle. Some of this is looking dangerous. You could pick it up with the tissue if you wanted to. You could pick it up with anything, but what I want is it dark down this end. That's what I do want, is that strength. And it looks like a bush that's fallen over. I can darken these trees later if I need to, but they just are soft. They're just in there with the rest of the art scene. Could actually add some more trees to it, but it's a minimal artwork. The colour speaks for itself. Nothing else, just the colour. Sucked up a bit more there. Suck up more here. It's actually taking that out so I can't do too much. Okay, now I'll let that dry and then I'll come back and just do some of the branches in this as a tree that's fallen over. I'm also impatient too, so I could touch that with a tissue. It wants to keep building up just in that spot there. Or if I let it go to somewhere drier, then it won't keep coming back up there. Maybe if I move this to the centre. Now that's going to wait until it's not completely dry, but almost dry, and it'll give it feathery branches in it. I've just added a little bit more Payne's Grey to the mix that I had for the trees, and I've kept that. And I'm going to use that for the bush down here. And so I'll work upside down, which is my natural way to work when I'm actually doing a bush, is to actually have that on an angle. The paper's a bit buckled now. Hold that down and then actually pull the paint towards me. The reason for that is that the fine end of the brush is up this end, not that end, because that's where the brush goes down on the paper. That's where the darker end is. So what I'm going to do is start coming up from there, and you may not see all of this for a little while, but you will. You'll start to see the branches coming up through here with lots of them as I come up into the light. And so I'll bring them out right from the edge of the bush and just keep working in here, and eventually they'll start to come out here and you'll see them all the way through. If it's not dark enough, I can always add more dark by just doubling up with the dark. That now is sort of showing stronger in the dark. Also, it's coming towards me, which is not ideal, but that will bring this bush up to life, because as soon as you see those parts of it here, you'll start to see the strength of that bush coming to life. And I haven't gone too dark to start with. That would have been a mistake if it was just really dark to start with. But I can keep adding it and getting it stronger as I go. That'll come up through here and do the shape of the bush. I can always go darker, but it's very hard if you go too dark to start with in something like this. It's getting a bit hairy out there. Okay, it's not that easy to see the dark on it. So now I know I can safely add a little bit more Payne's Grey, and I'll take it straight out of the bottle now, and it'll run. It'll run down there because I've got the angle. And I'm putting it in that crate because I spilt it earlier. Put it in there and drop it in here. Now it's going to run down. The Payne's Grey is going to run down that branch because it's all wet. So if I just encourage it to start to come down, it'll start to follow those edges because I've got it wet. Water follows water. And so if I do that and tilt it, it will actually start to follow down. If not, I'll encourage it to come down more. Just little bits of branches everywhere. Oops, wrong one. And so now I'm building up the centre of the bush. And you'll see that they'll have softness as well. That's getting too dark. So as soon as I see it getting too dark, I stop. That's sort of just stopped there, but I'll wait till I get some off the brush before I can come back there. Bring it back. Now I'll turn it round and start to bring it back down to the bottom edge here where it's very, very dark. Drop that in. I'll leave it at that shape at the end there. I think that's, could put just a bit of a straight line on it. Just something to have it sitting there. And so now I've actually completed it with a point to view it. Because obviously that's the major thing that's there. Minimal painting, but beautiful colours in the artwork. I hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for listening.